And look, immigrate, like when we had a large wave of Polish people come in the 2000s, it was disruptive to people's wages, particularly in the kind of the sparkies, the builders, etc. But broadly speaking, it was not disruptive to the cultural fabric of this country because they had a similar religion, similar values, etc. When you have people come from very disparate cultures, that becomes much more difficult to digest. And when the numbers are such, it's just impossible to assimilate people that quickly. So where you are now is, as I said when we started this bit, we now have same numbers of illegal immigrants coming as we did legal immigrants within my lifetime. That's crazy. And so when people are pushing back against that, they've got legitimate concerns that have to be addressed. And if they're not, you will see a political revolution inevitably. And I hope it's a political revolution, because if you keep storing these frustrations up, it could spill out into worse things, which none of us want.
I've heard you say the most important thing is to not allow immigration to become a moral issue.
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's a practical issue. It's a practical issue. Of course, we would want to provide refuge to people who are genuinely fleeing persecution, but that has to be on the terms that the people of this country have voted for, because we live in a democracy, right? So in the same way that you decide who comes into your house, you might well say, there's someone fleeing persecution by the Chinese Communist Party in Hong Kong, or there's someone fleeing war in Ukraine, or there's someone fleeing war in Sudan, or wherever. And you go, I'll actually, house a family in my home while they get on their feet, right? But I don't think there's a single person in the world who would appreciate just tens of thousands of people coming and breaking into their house without their permission, no matter how destitute they were, actually, right? So it's about balancing the interests of British people, French people, American people, whatever, with other concerns. And if you just take it as a moral issue, you cease to be pragmatic and practical about it, which is how you get to where we've got to, and then reality strikes back. And my favorite Thomas Sowell quote is, "You can ignore reality, you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring reality." And that's where we are.
Of course.
Here, I think he's either intentionally or unintentionally confusing two different things. So in this country, we have a system of elected representatives, and they are exactly that. So we are not experts on all areas, and neither is a politician, but there are committees and there are laws made by people who are experts in given areas. Now, some of this will relate to asylum law and the European Court of Human Rights that we signed up to. Now, particularly in relation to economic migrants, I'm pretty sure that nobody's going to be granted asylum by taking the economic asylum route. So unless we've got evidence to the contrary that the Home Office are just waving people through as economic migrants, which is obviously never going to happen because it's so ludicrous, we know it's not the case, then let's just stop that conversation there and just say they've gone through a process set by the Home Office. Now, we know the Home Office are not the best buddy for some asylum seeker stranger that's trying to come into the country. So if that person presents enough evidence above a given threshold, then they're likely to be successful. And if it's below the threshold, then they're not going to be successful. And this is the process that we've already got in this country. And it's disingenuous to pretend that this is not the system that we already have. Now, in terms of voting for change, if we pressure our MPs to say, well, actually, we're not quite happy with things, and we either need to change the treaties that we signed up for, the international laws, absolutely fair enough. And then they go down that route and they listen to their constituents and make that change, or they don't listen to their constituents and they get voted out. That's a system in the UK. It's absolutely fair. Democracy in progress.